In this lesson, we'll continue developing the basic forms of our vehicle, focusing now on the side and hatch. Alright, so in the previous lesson, we worked on the wheels and establishing the forms of the wheels for our vehicle. Now, at this point, if we go ahead and hide our group with our 3D sketch in it, you'll see that it's starting to look a little bit more like a vehicle of sorts. So that's kind of what I was going for. I don't like to wait too long in putting the wheels on. It just feels a little more like a vehicle. Now, you may also notice that we've got this little dude that I've doodled down here in the corner, and I've done that just for the simple purpose of establishing scale of our vehicle. So we have a little human standing there. We know what the size of a human is. So now we know what the scale of this vehicle looks like. So let's go ahead and move in here now, and we're going to kind of take a look at sort of the side of the vehicle here. Now, I mentioned earlier on that I'm using this profile sketch that I've done here to kind of map out the details and spinning this sketch around, kind of deciding which details get kept, obviously which details don't. And looking here at the side of this vehicle, we can see that the side is where the entry point for the vehicle is. We've got kind of a hatch right here. Now, my idea for this hatch is one where it sort of opens up right here along this seam, and it also opens up along these two lines right here. So this particular piece of it is going to actually fold down, and these two doors, one on the right, one on the left, one is going to open this way, and the other one is going to open this way. So it's kind of a three-sided hatch. So this bottom triangle is actually going to form sort of the ramp into the vehicle. So now thinking about this, what does this mean for this piece up here? Obviously, we can't tell how far this hatch protrudes out or it's recessed in based on this profile view. So we're going to have to rely on our 3D sketch. Now, this piece right here is going to be a little bit difficult because this is actually more of a canopy for the hatch itself. So it's hard to tell from this view. That's kind of what I intended it to be. So, if we come over here to the 3D sketch, it's really not very apparent what's going on right there. So we'll hide that, and you can kind of see here in the 3D sketch, it almost feels kind of like a tube-like structure that's wrapping around the vehicle. So we're going to have to kind of break from the sketch just a little bit here to get my idea across. And we'll just come over here, making sure we have our sketch layer now. And the first thing I would probably do is look at the baselines for our shape. Remember, we defined this edge right here of our shape. Now, in all reality, we're probably going to end up breaking this edge because you can't even see that edge based on kind of the details from the sketch that we're working from. But we're going to use that line to draw another line parallel here. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to kind of connect maybe this little corner right here of the fender to the same corner on the opposite side away from us of this fender right here. Now, we can't see that, so maybe come in here and just kind of draw in a line there that as if that fender were transparent, and maybe come in here, sort of draw in that edge right there. So we get this corner right here that we're going to be mapping this to. Now, obviously this is going to be kind of guesswork, but I did that really, really quick. But the real important thing is that this line that we're drawing is parallel to this line right here. And it looks like I may have it just off just a bit, so we'll come in here and drop it in right about there. And just draw that in a few more times. All right, great. Now, this is one of those areas where I've drawn extra line work that I don't need, so we could clean that up now. We could wait till later. Completely up to you. For the sake of time, I'm probably just going to do most of my cleanup in between lessons, and obviously I cleaned that up really quickly. But let's go ahead and look down here at what's going on. Remember, we've got sort of this hatch up here that has kind of this face, this face, this face, and then we have this surface right here as well. So I envision that hatch to be kind of sticking out of the vehicle. So again, you've got the two doors, one right here, one right here. Then you have kind of the seam right here that I was going for in opening those two doors. Now, from this angle, based on the 3D sketch, you really can't see the triangular panel at the bottom of the hatch, but let's go ahead and just start roughing this in here. Now, we've already drawn this line here. Now, let's come in here and let's just start drawing some of these vertical lines. Some of the lines we know are more than likely in the right spot. So I'm going to go ahead and pick some of these out here. Let's go ahead and draw this one in. We'll draw this one in. Could draw those a little bit bigger than I probably should, but we can shave those back. Now let's think about this canopy piece. This canopy piece is kind of triangular in nature, and if we come back over here to our sketch, you can kind of see that if I were to draw a straight line through those corners, just like so, you've got a little bit of it that actually comes into the vehicle's main body. So if the main body of the vehicle, the corner was right there, this is how this shape is going to sit on that. So let's come back over here and let's think about this. Well, first, actually, let's go ahead and just erase these vertical lines that we've just drawn. If we're going to focus on the canopy, we probably should do that first. So thinking about the canopy is probably going to extend out a little further than this door is going to protrude anyway. So the key element here, the area I would focus on first, is probably the corners of the canopy. So looking here at the corners, it looks like the corners of this shape actually connect to sort of the where the fender connects right here as it tapers down towards the hatch. And it connects in a very similar place in both those areas. So this one's a little bit gray, but let's come over here and start with that. So we've kind of established where that corner is with this line right here. So we know kind of where we think the vertical lines of the door are going to be. Now what we don't know is where the edges of the canopy are going to be, because if it sticks out further, it's going to basically not match up with these vertical lines in the door itself because of the perspective. So let's go ahead and start out right here. And if we were to draw this just sort of like this, and let's say that's where our canopy is. Now, if that's where our canopy is, the vertical lines in the door are probably going to be just to the right of these corners right here. So maybe just draw them like right there. That's going to give the illusion that the canopy is actually sticking out further than the door. But let me go ahead and back step a few steps there. Now, looking at this, it looks like this flat edge is almost dead center in that side between those two corners. And if anything, it might be a little bit closer to this corner right here. What's it look like in our sketch? Well, actually, it looks like it's a little bit closer to the back side here. So I tell you what, let's go ahead and step back even further and undo those three lines that I've drawn right there. And I'm going to go ahead and just redraw this. And I'm going to put that corner right about here. Now, I still want to come out about even with that line right there. But if I go ahead and put that, say, right there, and let's go ahead and draw a parallel line here with this line. That looks pretty good. And it looks like it's about the same length as well. So, and then we'll come in here with this corner and connect it here. Now that's going to give the illusion that this flat edge is a little bit further back. But, you know, we've got a problem here. We were looking at the 3D model instead of the perspective lines, and this line right here is definitely not parallel to this perspective line. So I'm going to back up and redraw that just for a moment. So you can kind of see how these perspective lines are really working to help us here. Again, we're kind of establishing our perspective based on those guidelines here and looking at what's parallel and what's not. So when something doesn't quite look right, it probably isn't. Now what we've done here is just address sort of the bottom half of the canopy, but what about the area that extends above this line here? There's actually going to be this corner right here that we need to figure out where that's going to be. So again, that's very close, or a lot closer to this rear corner right here. So I'm going to come in and just kind of guesstimate where that is going to be. So coming in here, let's go ahead and think about how high that actually is. And that is, if we kind of draw a line here, you can see that we're lining up just a little bit short of the actual height of these fenders. Now these fenders are a little different than the ones I'm drawing. These aren't quite flat. They actually have a little bit of a slope to them, but we're going to work on the fenders more in just a little bit. We're going to come up here and let's go ahead and place that corner here. Now this is one of those situations where I would probably just kind of come in here and draw it, and if it doesn't look quite right, I'd probably kind of redraw it. So I'm going to come in and we're going to drop that in right about here. Reinforce that line once or twice, and then bring that back over here. Looks like I'm getting a little bit off there. And now we've got this extra line here. We could always come in with our eraser tool and just kind of roughly erase that away to give a little bit of a better idea of what the shape is of this particular canopy. Now, thinking about that here, we think about how this canopy is kind of angling up. It's not going to be completely flat, so it is going to have just a little bit of an angle to it if it's at if this corner is inset like this and it's just the way we've drawn it here. So again, we're probably going to work a little bit more on that kind of as we get up into this area, just kind of blending the two areas together, but I'm going to work my way down at this point. So now that we've drawn the canopy, I can come in here and I can kind of look at these vertical lines and thinking about how far the door is going to protrude out. So I'm going to come in and draw in those vertical lines again here. And drawing them in right about there, right about even with where they're at, is actually making it appear to be recessed just a little bit, which is what I was wanting. So we're going to come in and draw in another line here, and we want that to be parallel to this purple perspective line. So I'm going to come in and we'll just knock that in right about there. Maybe come in and extend this line just a little bit. And let's go ahead and bring this in, at least to where the tire is. Now, this back piece right here is a little different. Let's go ahead and take a look at our profile here again. So what we're seeing there is really, actually, well, I tell you what, I'm really not sure what's going on in the 3D sketch. I don't think it is quite what's going on here in the profile of the vehicle, but we might see these hinges here on the opposite side of the door, and there's actually an edge right here I've kind of defined, and there's one before and after the door. So I'm going to come over here and just kind of think about that from this 3/4 view. Probably come in and maybe just draw this line in sort of like that. And let's go ahead and maybe pull that up right about there just by holding shift. Kind of reinforce that line a couple times, and then I'm going to kind of look at that and make sure that that door looks about right. Now, since we've established kind of this edge, or this vertical edge of this side of this door, we probably should establish the same edge on the opposite door. So let's just come in and draw another vertical line right about there. And now we've kind of defined the width of the door itself. So we could come in at this point and draw those kind of those angular lines that we saw in the profile. So these over here. And we could, I would probably avoid drawing any more detailed information in this area for right now, just to make sure that kind of we're saving all the details for sort of the same step. Remember, we're just kind of blocking in the shapes, figuring out where the forms are. Now at this point I'm looking sort of at this line right here, just kind of get a strategy for drawing that in here. We're going to put that in right about there. And we'll probably draw one more line kind of right in there. Alright, so that's looking pretty good. I'll probably come in and reinforce these lines just a little bit here. Clean this area up just a bit. Now, let me just kind of hide that group underneath and kind of look at what we've done here. You can see here we've kind of defined the basic shapes in the side of our vehicle. But you know what? Overall, the vehicle still kind of looks like an elongated cube here, and there's not a lot going on top except for this lone cockpit that we've already drawn here. So if we bounce back over to our 3D model here, what I'd like to focus on in the next lesson is actually kind of building up this area behind the cockpit. You can see here that there's some strange details here that really aren't conveyed in the 3D sketch. So in the next lesson, we're going to kind of switch gears and take a look at these areas in the vehicle.